Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. My name is Stephen Ledoux, and Rebecca Howard and I are today's worship associates. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the sacred, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. If this is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Please sign our guest book. You can also speak with our greeter, Mike McNaughton, or with Anna Delane or Rebecca, co-chairs of our membership committee. For kids here in our service, we have our activity table up front, and we ask kids to use their whisper voices at this table. They can also stay seated with their grown-ups in here or in the library room. We also have a nursery for youngsters 0 to 3 years. Sarah Hamoud is our nursery coordinator, and she can check your youngsters into our nursery. If you would like more information about our programs for youth and children, please speak with Elizabeth Portillos, our Lifespan Spiritual Enrichment staff. After the time for all ages, kids will leave with Elizabeth for our World Blessings class. We have our Candles of Community area over here and in the back. If you would like to light a candle and or write your joy or sorrow in the book to be read aloud, you are encouraged to come up before the prayer meditation time to do so. If you are in need of pastoral care or support or even financial assistance, please contact Reverend Tina Dio to set up an appointment. She will return to the office on Tuesday.
Not there yet. You're invited to greet your neighbor now. You're encouraged to greet someone you might not know or recognize. If you rather just shake hands, wave. Okay, let's try this again. If you would rather wave and not shake hands, that's okay too. I'll call us back with a chime. And Stephen says, Nellie says, she's in New York, right? New York? Massachusetts. Nellie says to tell everybody hi. All right, announcements. Coffee and conversation. Join us after the service in the fellowship hall for coffee and conversation. If you happen to have seen our minister and your other congregants in the Los Alamos Light Opera Sister Act at the high school, musical is playing at the high school now, you're welcome to give a review to anybody here. There's a matinee today, this afternoon at 2 p.m. And additionally, there is no comparative religion class today at noon. Apparently, James is out of the country. Let's see, the membership committee is updating our photo directories, and we need your photos, members and friends, for the board in the fellowship hall and our online directory. If you haven't given us a recent photo, please take a moment to share one with us. We like to have families and pets. If you don't have a recent photo, we can take one for you. So we can do that anytime today. And let's see, now, register now for our April class, Dying My Way. What are options for me and my family? Class is facilitated by the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos with guest speakers from End of Life Options New Mexico, Enchanted Sky Hospice Care, and Amber Pope from the Rivera Funeral Home, speaking on the topic of body disposition options. The course will end with an in-person death cafe on Saturday, May 2nd, and here at our church, and we'll eat cake, drink tea, and talk about death. The class schedule has been published through our church announcement emails. There are flyers in the foyer on the table by the door you can take as well. All sessions will be on Zoom from 6 to 7:30 p.m., starting in the month of April on Thursday evenings. To attend this online class, you need to register ahead of time. You can use the QR code here to register now, or you can sign up using the link in your church announcement email. And I believe Linda Deck has a quick announcement to make. Yes, I'll just say this. Please go ahead and silence your cell phones this morning as we begin our worship service together. Is mine silent? No. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Deck. I'm on the Hospitality Committee, and my beat is the coffee and conversations that we do after the service that Rebecca just mentioned. One of the best ways to show loving kindness is to help people feel welcome when they come here to our services, and that's what coffee and conversation and the snacks that accompany them is all about. We have wonderful volunteers that have been serving to help make the coffee happen, make the coffee at the beginning of the service, and also provide some snacks. But we could use a few more. So if you're interested in serving this delightful way, please see me after the service. I'll be there, Coffee and Conversations, and I can get you on the list. Thank you very much.
We come together as a community every Sunday to pause and worship together. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion, calling us to be our better selves. Rebecca will now give our chalice lighting words, and Nylea will come up and light our chalice. She likes the color green.
These are the words of Sean Trapp. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It is our reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast, and our experience here is but a blip in the cosmic timeline. This flame is our promise that in our stillness, in our smallness and our short time on this earth, that we live intently and deeply with love for one another, with honesty and integrity, to be guided by rational thought and critical thinking, and with a sense of shared responsibility. For as the late astronomer Carl Sagan reminds us, this pale blue dot is the only home we've ever known.
Let us rise now in body and our spirit for our opening hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. Love is the doctrine of this church. For truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all people shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated.
This month, our offering plate is going to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, also known as the UUSC. UUSC addresses the core causes of injustice by partnering with local communities, amplifying their voices, and advocating for institutional and systemic change. As a note, we have envelopes in our offering basket and in the foyer if you would like your cash or check to go to the Church General Fund. If you would like this Church General Fund donation to be tax deductible and you put in cash, write your name on the envelope. You can put your envelope back in the offering basket or in the white mailbox outside the church office door. You can also use the QR code on the screen for the Givelify app to make a donation to UUSC or directly to our church's general fund. Let us now take the offering, and may what you give bring you joy.
Thank you for your generosity this morning. Your gifts will help the UU Service Committee challenge injustice and advance human rights around the world.
During this time, you're invited to come up to our Candles of Community space if you haven't already done so. Light a candle and write a joy or sorrow in our book, which is at the front table of candles. Joys and sorrows that are written will then be read aloud. During this time, you can remain seated and join in our meditation song, number 83. Let us now enter into this time of prayer and meditation as we sing Winds Be Still. Wow, thank you, Nylea. That was gorgeous. I'd like to give you some background about Stephen Ledoux, our pulpit guest today. He's going to speak to us on inspiration from what science says about reality. Stephen spent 4 years of Catholic seminary high school and 2 years of seminary college. The times they are a change in 1960s led Stephen to complete college in an MA degree in the natural science of behavior, which is now called behaviorology. He taught college in Australia and China in the mid-70s, and somewhat unbelievably, Ronald Reagan and James Bond signed his MA degree. He returned to his studies and completed a PhD in 1982. He taught at the State University of New York in Canton, where he met and married his spouse, Dr. Nellie Case, in Canton's UU Church. To preserve each other's jobs, she was a professor of music at the university campus. I'm not sure what SNU, the New York University campus in Potsdam, New York, a few miles away. They stayed in Canton for over 30 years and raised 2 children there. Then in 2016, they moved here, and now they visit their children in New England. So, Stephen.
Welcome to this science-based extended elevator speech on reality. Reality. The only thing, not only is reality stranger than we can imagine, but it is also stranger than we can imagine. With words like these, several science commentators over the last century have characterized the results of closely examining the nature of reality. They could be more literally correct than they ever imagined. And that could be due to this caution. Even though our conclusions here about reality stem from natural sciences, from physics to behaviorology, they only concern what we can know about reality and how we can know it. Our conclusions remain largely irrelevant to existence questions, like whether or not reality exists, or what really exists in or makes up reality. This is because we are constrained by a limitation that both physics and behaviorology have recognized. The constraint is this: ultimately, our only source of knowledge about anything, including reality, comes initially through the firings of our sensory neurons, which presumably fire due to energy traces from our environment that presumably exists in reality, presumably. So maybe we are dealing with a far too little acknowledged nature of reality, and this could elicit some severe emotional discomfort. However, as good science says, we can only benefit from improving our understanding of reality. Lawrence Fraley, in his 2008 book, General Behaviorology, extended a summary of the natural laws governing behavior and found that they lead to the same conclusion about reality that Stephen Hawking and his co-author reached through the logic of naturalism in physics in their 2010 book, The Grand Design. Stating this science conclusion about reality baldly gives us this: we must neurally behave reality as our neurally behaving reality is the sole source of knowing about reality, because we can get no closer to reality than the neural behaviors evoked by the firings of sensory neurons. Let's unpack that a bit starting with what behaving is and what knowing is. Behaving happens when neurons get stimulated and so fire, while knowing does not usually refer to our usual behaviors, which are neuromuscular behaviors, like walking and talking. Instead, knowing involves various responses that, like thinking, are purely neural responses. Knowing refers to a cascade of purely neural responses that we call consciousness. A cascade that external or internal stimuli produce when their energy traces bring about responses like raw sensation, awareness, recognition, comprehension, thinking, observing, reporting, and so on. Our well-grounded science presumption is that the universe operates lawfully, so something must be stimulating sensory neuron firings. Yet these firings are the beginning of our actual knowledge. The fact that they fire is our only source of knowledge about any stimulation contacting these neurons. How does that work? The firing of sensory neurons evoke neural-only behaviors that are, that is, that establish our reality. In other words, due to the firing of sensory neurons, we neurally behave reality. All our sensing, all our seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling, moving, dreaming, and so on is behavior, is neurons firing, and its occurrence establishes reality. This does not mean that the firing of sensory neurons initiates behavior. That would be magic that natural science has already set aside. But the most counterintuitive part, because we, that is our bodies, have no sensors going beyond the sensory neuron parts of our nervous system, the most counterintuitive part is that this evoked neural behaving of reality is our only source of knowledge about reality. This means that this neural behaving of reality is also the only source of knowledge about the reality of our sensory neurons. Thus, it is also the only source of knowledge about the reality of any stimuli or stimulus energy traces that produce the firings of sensory neurons. And so it is also the only source of knowledge about the reality of any behavior, neural or neuromuscular, that the firings of sensory neurons subsequently induce. Indeed, as a result of our contacting all the sensing equipment that we consider as enhancing our sensors, for example, our microscopes and telescopes, as a result of our still only contacting this equipment through our sensory neurons, we still only know about the reality of any such equipment and about whatever data such equipment produces through the firings of sensory neurons. Now, that's not really too heavy for a Sunday morning, is it? So what about the implications of behaving reality? One implication is that nothing precludes the existence of the environment or reality beyond our capacity to neurally behave, both it and our knowledge of it. Organisms lack the capacity for more direct contact with the environment or reality beyond what sensory neuron firings furnish. So only behavior itself is available to establish reality. For example, to establish the reality of those sights, sounds, tastes, smells, touches, feels, including movements, emotions, imaginings, and dreams, to which we otherwise seem further to be reacting. Meanwhile, natural sciences have clarified on several occasions that realities differ and change according to the repertoire of the body that is behaving the reality. You can experience this for yourself. Imagine, for example, a dining table from the 1930s in your family home, then and today. Non-physicists behave the reality of an inch-thick tabletop through which they cannot push a coffee mug regardless of how much force they can personally exert in the effort. They behave the reality of the tabletop as solid. Yet professional physicists from the 1930s, making an instrumented examination of the tabletop, behave the reality of a complex structure consisting mostly of empty space. And professional physicists today, making a more advanced instrumented examination of the same tabletop, behave a reality of ever greater complexity, greater precision, and greater confusion, or at least obscurity, to the non-physicist. Realities differ. That carries further implications. For instance, any inputs that induce sensory neuron firings that fail to evoke the neural behaviors of knowing remain inputs about which we know nothing. They affect other behavior, both neural and neuromuscular, for example, through a process called direct stimulus control, but their reality remains unestablished and so unknown. As yet another and related implication, inputs that induce sensory neuron firings that fail to evoke accurate neural behaviors of knowing remain inputs for which our neural knowing behaviors reflect an inaccurate establishing of reality. This leaves their reality misestablished, even while they then affect other behaviors, neural and neuromuscular, also inaccurately. So consider some examples of both unestablished reality and misestablished reality. Starting with unestablished reality. Consider daydreaming and driving. Actually, don't try this. Energy trace inputs from the road ahead, for example, curves in the road, can induce sensory neuron firings that evoke only driving responses, for instance, successful steering responses under direct stimulus control. That is, we do not usually know and cannot later describe the number, angles, and distances of curves in the road, but we drive successfully anyway. Meanwhile, even while you are driving, other stimuli may be invoking knowing responses of a daydreaming type. That is, we know, and we can often later describe the theme, content, and direction of our daydream, perhaps of the delivery of a sermon you're on your way to give. As a result, we remain unaware of, that is, we lack knowledge of the road stimuli that are controlling the steering responses. The reality of these stimuli remains unestablished. We may presume them, but that's a separate behavior, and we still cannot report them later, even though they controlled our driving responses with at least minimal adequacy, as proven by the fact that we did not crash. What about misestablished reality? Consider an example like so many mundane examples that each of us has experienced. Indeed, the events in this example actually happened to me. The main footpath to my campus office crossed a small forested island. Walking that path one day, shortly after the college had cleared the debris left over from the now completely melted snow, I observed that I was seeing perhaps 50 feet ahead, and at the end of a curving part of the path, a stone the size of a large watermelon at the edge of and in the shadow of a bush that was about 5 feet tall and about 8 feet away from the path edge. That is, I neurally behaved the stone, presumably from light energy traces inducing some sensory neuron firings in my eyes, which established the reality of the stone. Along with, of course, the reality of the path and the bush and so on. If the path had not taken me close past the stone, I would likely never have behaved it again, and thus left it a stone forever, so far as I could know. The path, however, did take me closer to the stone. As I started to pass the stone, I observed that I was seeing letters on it. That is, I was behaving letters on the stone from sensory neuron firings, presumably induced by light energy traces reflecting off the letters. As these established the reality of the letters, I also observed further neural responses such as, what? Letters on a stone? Then, as the letters were evoking these neural questions, I also observed that I was behaving the stone changing shape. Whoa, spooky. Apparently, a sudden gust of wind, the reality of which I was also behaving, was changing the stone's shape. Nearly simultaneously, I began behaving, that is, establishing the reality of the stone as a discarded gray grocery bag with the name of a store printed on it. Behaving it as a stone had misestablished its reality. Wait though, was it a grocery bag all along? Careful, tricky question. So far as I know, no, it was not. Although, so far as I or anyone might presume, yes, of course it was a bag all along. However, presuming involves a further behavioral step away from the events, and presuming is not knowing. It is an additional behavior that comes from less direct but combined lines of suggestive evidence. Having behaved the object as a stone, one can only know it to be a stone. Only after behaving it later as a bag can one know it to be a bag and presume that it had always been a bag. Reality. It is not so sure a thing as past conditioning compels us to think. And so a question arises. What, if any, supports are available for the behaved confidence that reality evokes in its apparent existence? Does reality actually exist? We have no way to know, given the constraint that only sensory neuron firings establish reality. Now, some people say, since we cannot know that reality exists independently of our neurally behaving it, then it does not exist. Others argue, though, that same reasoning, since we cannot know that reality exists, then we cannot know that reality does not exist. So, what would you say? What can we say? The scientific characterization of reality is that we neurally behave reality under the limitation of sensory neuron firings, which allows, in that it fails to preclude the non-directly knowable existence of a reality, of an environment, of a realm beyond our neural behaving. To prevent some perhaps unnecessary stresses, let's look elsewhere for evidence, indirect evidence regarding any reality to reality. Some seemingly sensible supports for reality do seem to exist. In support of the self-correction routines of natural science, we will list the labels of some of these indirect supports and follow this list with a variety of practical examples. Indirect supports can strengthen our confidence that despite lacking more direct proof, something exists outside us. These indirect supports include the contiguity, consistency, reliability, potency, and even patterns extent in our ultimately behaved data, along with the process and outcomes of direct stimulus control, as well as our very existence and survival. Here are examples supporting our confidence with respect to the reality of reality. They take the form of this question: why would this or that happen if no reality exists to make the sensory neurons fire? Consider this sample. Why would anyone behave a noisy car, or a screeching cat, or an arguing neighbor, or a crashing burglar, or the sweet sounds of a capable street musician, or an alarm clock disturbing their sleep, if no reality exists that somehow supplies the energy traces that induce the sensory neuron firings that evoke neurally behaving the reality of the noisy car or any of those other mentioned possibilities that disturb their sleep? Why would their sensory neurons fire if no reality exists? Here are more examples supportive of our confidence with respect to the reality of reality, each including but not repeating that whole question. Why would a letter carrier behave a dog, appearing from behind a behaved bush and biting her or his behaved leg if no reality exists to make the sensory neurons fire? Or why would you start down your basement stairs, I know, behaved basement stairs, after a thunderstorm on a hot August afternoon, only to stop short as you behave a 4-foot layer of backed up dirty sewer water covering the floor, if no reality exists to make the sensory neurons fire? Why not just behave clean water and take a swim? No? Why would that not work? Well, yes, and such examples can go on endlessly. We don't behave more satisfactory answers because, again, we can get no closer to reality than neurally behaving it along with the neural consciousness behaviors of knowing, all of which is evoked by the firing of sensory neurons. However, as natural science self-correction routines operate, which such supports may strengthen our behaviors of confidence that something really exists as reality, even as we can still only neurally behave reality. And that is behaving and saying and thinking and inspiring a lot. Please stand in body or spirit for our last hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Consider this prayer of a better future. All of us remain part of nature, and the many manifestations of nature surround us, interact with us, and affect how we act, binding us all together. So rather than trying to conquer it, nature is something for us to respect, understand, study, support, apply, appreciate, and assist in helping us to create and contribute to an ever more increasing justice, compassion, and harmony among people and in the universe. All of these form activities, efforts, and energies that nature constantly evokes from us through the best of science, and science is that most wonderful and beneficial special range of general human behavior. May all of this be more so. And as Rebecca extinguishes our chalice, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please feel free to join hands for our closing song, The Way.